At Sunday's barbecue, my son tossed my steak to the ground and sneered, "You want meat? Go gnaw on it at the nursing home, you worthless old woman." The next day, I packed my bags and sold the house. My phone rang 28 times. He begged, pleaded. But I never looked back. I'm glad you're here. Stay with me to the end of this story, and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is Tatum, and I'm 69 years old. Last Sunday, my son treated me like I was nothing more than a stray dog. He threw my steak on the ground like garbage and laughed. "You want meat? Go chew it at the nursing home, you useless old woman." Those words cut deeper than any slap ever could. I stood in my own backyard, during a barbecue I had paid for, watching the steak I'd been looking forward to land in the dirt beside my feet. Cedric stood over me, his face twisted with the kind of cruelty that had taken years to grow, years I'd chosen to excuse. His wife, Jessica, actually laughed. Their children, my grandchildren, just 8 and 10, stared at me with cold, empty eyes. The same indifference their parents had taught them. No one helped me. No one defended me. Slowly, I bent down, my aching knees protesting the movement, and picked up the dirty steak. My hands trembled, not from age, but from rage. Rage that had built up quietly over decades. "Cedric," I said, my voice even, brushing off the meat. "What did you just say to me?" He rolled his eyes, like he always had since his teen years. "Come on, Mom. Don't be so dramatic. It was just a joke." A joke. 2 decades of being treated like the help in my own home, and it was all a joke to him. I looked around. The deck I'd paid to build. The pool I'd installed for his children, who barely acknowledged me. The brand new grill Cedric insisted on for Father's Day, even though he'd never truly fathered anyone but himself. This house, my house. A 4-bedroom suburban dream I'd worked 3 jobs to afford after his father walked out. I gave everything so Cedric could have what other kids had: private school, sports, tuition I couldn't afford. I gave up my own dreams. My comfort. My dignity. And this was the thanks I got. "Grab another steak from the kitchen," Cedric said, already turning away. "And bring more beer." Like I was staff. I stood there, holding that dirty piece of meat. And something inside me snapped. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks. It was quiet, like a thread finally breaking under too much strain. I walked into the house, past the living room where I had raised him alone. Past the walls covered in photos of milestones I had funded and he had taken for granted. In the kitchen, I dropped the steak into the trash. I looked around at the space that had become my cage. This wasn't the first time. Not even the worst. Just last month, Cedric borrowed my credit card and spent $800 on golf gear. Without asking. When I confronted him, he told me I was selfish. That I should be grateful he still visited his crazy old mom. 6 months ago, his family had moved into my home, temporarily, he said, after being evicted for not paying rent. Jessica immediately took over. Rearranged my furniture. Threw away my belongings. Treated me like a guest in the house I owned. I cooked. I cleaned. I babysat. While they went to dinners, movies, weekend getaways. When I asked when they might start looking for their own place, Cedric laughed. "Why would we move? This setup's perfect." Perfect. For them. That afternoon, I walked back outside with a fresh steak and a cold beer, just like the obedient little servant I had allowed myself to become. Cedric took them without so much as a thank you, already whining about something else. I sat in the flimsy plastic chair they gave me, while they lounged in the fancy patio furniture I had bought. And right then, I made a decision that changed everything. I was done. Done being invisible in the life I built. Done being treated like a burden by the very child I had sacrificed everything for. Done pretending this was what family looked like. That night, once they'd gone to bed, bellies full of food I cooked, messes left for me to clean, I sat at the kitchen table and made a list. A very important list. By morning, I had made 3 phone calls that would flip Cedric's world upside down. He had no idea what was coming. The first call? To Dave, Martha's son-in-law and a real estate agent. It was barely 6 a.m., but I didn't want to wait another second. Standing in my bathroom with the water running to mask the sound, I whispered, "Dave, I need to sell my house. Today." There was a pause. "Tatum, are you okay? This feels sudden." "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I said. By 7:30, he was standing at my front door, papers in hand, and a plan ready to go. Cedric and his family were still fast asleep, worn out from yet another night of treating my home like their private resort. Meanwhile, Dave, the realtor, was already in the kitchen, snapping photos, jotting down notes, and telling me something I had never imagined possible. "I can get you a cash offer in 24 hours, he said in a hushed voice as we stood in my gleaming, spotless kitchen. "It's a seller's market. Homes like this, in this neighborhood? They're like gold. I have 3 investors ready to buy something just like this." While my son dozed in the guest room he'd turned into his personal master suite, I was signing paperwork that would take it all away. You see, Cedric had been banking on inheriting this house since he was 25. He used to brag to his friends, to Jessica, to anyone who'd listen, "I'm set. Mom's got that big place and no one else to leave it to." He never worked steadily. Never saved. Never made a plan for his own future, because he thought mine would become his. For the last 5 years, every major decision he made was built on the assumption that this house, now worth nearly $400,000, was his fallback. His emergency parachute. But what Cedric didn't know is that I changed my will a year ago, after the way he humiliated me at Christmas dinner. He had no idea his name had been removed from everything. And more importantly, he had no clue I was about to remove him from my life altogether. By noon, we had a full-price cash offer. Closing in 72 hours. I accepted without a second thought. As Cedric lounged by the pool complaining to Jessica that I'd overcooked his lunch, I was upstairs packing 38 years of memories into boxes. I kept the photo albums from when Cedric was still sweet, before he started seeing me as a walking ATM. I held on to my mother's jewelry. My father's books. The quilt my grandmother had made. And the little porcelain angels I'd collected over the decades. Everything else? I left behind. Dave had a moving truck scheduled for Wednesday morning, the same day the sale would close. I'd already signed the lease on a cozy 2-bedroom apartment across town. Quiet complex. No long-term guests allowed. Perfect. By Tuesday evening, Cedric finally noticed something was off. "Mom," he called from the couch, mouth full of snacks, eyes glued to my television. "There's some weird paperwork on the kitchen counter." My heart beat a little faster, but my voice stayed calm. "Just insurance stuff, sweetheart. Nothing major." He grunted and went back to his show. Even with his future crumbling around him, he couldn't be bothered to ask more questions. That's Cedric in a nutshell. He always assumed everything would magically work out, because I'd always made sure it did. But not this time. Wednesday morning arrived like Christmas in reverse. The moving truck pulled up at 8 a.m. By the time Cedric stumbled out of bed at 10:30, half of my belongings were already loaded. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted, standing in the middle of the living room in yesterday's t-shirt and boxers. "I'm moving," I said, gently wrapping my last ceramic angel in bubble wrap. "Moving? What do you mean, moving?" "Moving where?" "To my new apartment," I replied. His face went pale. "Apartment? You can't move into an apartment." "What about the house? What about us?" "The house is sold. Closing's in 2 hours." I will never forget the look on his face, complete panic. Like a kid finding out Santa Claus isn't real. And in a way, he had. "Sold? You can't sell the house. We live here. You live here, I corrected. I've been trapped here. Jessica appeared in the doorway, eyes already scanning for a way to manipulate the situation. Tatum, let's just take a breath and talk this through, she said, voice dripping with false concern. You're obviously upset. We can fix this. But she was already too late. Cedric had been unknowingly training me for this moment for 20 years, every time he twisted my kindness into obligation, every time he tested a boundary and found none. This was the moment he finally pushed too far. The new owners will be here by noon, I said, handing my keys to Dave. I suggest you start packing. My new apartment felt like freedom. 2 bedrooms. A little balcony that looked out over a garden. Peace. No one asking for food. No one leaving dirty plates. No one treating me like I was invisible. For the first time in 2 decades, I ate when I felt hungry, not when someone expected it served. The phone rang at 6:47 p.m. Cedric's name flashed across the screen. I felt nothing. No guilt. No sorrow. Not even anger. Just peace. I let it go to voicemail. Call 2 came 15 minutes later. Then another. By bedtime, he'd called 8 times. I slept better than I had in years. Thursday morning brought a new wave of desperate attempts. When I finally checked, there were 12 missed calls. 7 voicemails. Mom, call me back. We need to talk about this madness. That was the first one, still pretending he was in charge. By the 5th message, his tone had cracked. Mom, please. The new people want us out by tomorrow. Where are we supposed to go? The 8th was Jessica, her voice honey-sweet. Tatum, sweetheart, this must be a misunderstanding. You know we love you. Please call us back. Let's fix this. I didn't bother listening to the rest. I deleted them all. While Cedric was unraveling, I was rediscovering something beautiful. My new neighbors saw me. Mrs. Chen from next door brought homemade cookies and actually asked about me, what I liked, what I thought, what I dreamed. Mr. Rodriguez from downstairs, Roberto, helped me hang pictures. You remind me of my mother, he said warmly. Strong women who raised good families deserve respect. If only he knew how wrong he was about the good family part. Friday brought calls 13 through 20. Cedric's messages were growing more frantic by the hour. Mom, they called the cops. They're treating us like squatters. You can't do this to your own son. We slept in the car last night, the kids are scared. How could you do this to your grandkids? Fine. You want an apology? I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for whatever I did. Just please, help us. But here's what Cedric still hadn't grasped. This was never about getting an apology. This was about 2 decades of being dismissed, disrespected, and used. That kind of damage doesn't get undone with a few panicked voicemails and a suddenly urgent sorry. Saturday evening, I was watering the little herb garden I'd started on my balcony when Mrs. Chen knocked gently on my door. Tatum, dear, she said, there's a young man downstairs asking for you. He looks quite distressed. I peered out the window and saw Cedric pacing the parking lot, hair wild, clothes rumpled. Jessica was in the car with the kids, probably crying, probably calling me insane under her breath, telling them Grandma had destroyed everything. I didn't go down. Call 21 came at 9 p.m. This time, I answered. What? Mom, thank God. Please. Listen, I know you're upset. I'm not upset, I cut in. Being mad would mean I still cared enough to feel something. I'm past that now. You can't be done. I'm your son. Are you? Because sons don't treat their mothers like hired help. Sons don't humiliate their mothers in front of their kids. Sons don't lie, manipulate, or borrow money they never intend to pay back. There was silence on the other end. Then, I never stole from you. I laughed. Out loud. Cedric, you've been stealing from me for 20 years. My peace. My dignity. My self-worth. The credit card was just the icing on the cake. Where are we supposed to go? Not my concern anymore, I said, and hung up. Then I shut off my phone. Sunday morning, a pounding on my door pulled me from my coffee. Through the peephole, I saw Cedric. He looked wrecked. I know you're in there, he shouted. Open the door. We need to talk. I sipped my coffee and listened as he made a spectacle of himself in the hallway. Mrs. Chen's door creaked open. Young man, she said sharply, you're disturbing everyone. If you don't leave, I'm calling building security. She's my mother. She sold our house. We're homeless. Your mother is a wonderful woman who deserves peace in her retirement. Leave before I make the call. I heard his footsteps retreat and smiled to myself. Mrs. Chen might be barely 5 feet tall, but she had more backbone than my 6-foot son ever had. Later that day, I was reading quietly in my new living room, surrounded only by things that brought me peace. My phone rang one more time. Call number 28. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Mom, Cedric's voice was raw, broken. Please. I'm begging you. I'll change. I'll do better. Just help us. Cedric, I said softly, staring out at the little tomato plants on my balcony. You had 38 years to do better. And every day, you chose not to. That's not fair. I made mistakes, but I can fix them. No, I said firmly. Some things can't be fixed. Some things are too damaged to put back together. The silence between us was heavy. Finally, he whispered, so that's it? You're just walking away from your family? I'm not walking away, I said. I'm finally choosing me. Something you never once encouraged me to do. And with that, I ended the call, for the last time. Oddly, it didn't scare me. Not knowing what Cedric would do next. For the first time in decades, I genuinely didn't care. 3 quiet, blissful weeks passed. Then one Tuesday morning, after returning from my walk, I found them. Cedric and Jessica. Sitting in the lobby of my apartment building. They looked wrecked. Cedric had lost weight. His face was hollow, his beard patchy. Jessica's usually flawless makeup was smudged. Her designer outfit wrinkled. They'd clearly been sleeping in their car. Hello, Cedric, I said as I walked past them toward the elevator. Didn't break stride. Mom, wait, he leapt up, trying to block my path. We need to talk. No, we don't. Jessica stood too, shifting into the tone she always used when she wanted something. Tatum, the kids miss their grandmother. This has gone on long enough. I looked at her. The same woman who'd laughed when Cedric threw a piece of meat at me like I was a dog. Where are the children now, Jessica? She hesitated. They're staying with friends. So, you dropped them off on someone else because you're homeless? I stepped around them. Interesting parenting strategy. Cedric followed. Mom, please. Just 5 minutes. Let us explain. I paused. Against my better judgment. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I just wanted to witness how far they'd fallen. Fine. 5 minutes. But not upstairs. We'll talk right here. We sat in the building's small seating nook. Through the window, I could see my balcony garden, cherry tomatoes, basil, oregano, all thriving. I'd started cooking for one. It was, surprisingly enjoyable. Cedric started. I want to say I'm sorry. For what I said at the barbecue. That was wrong. And? I asked. He blinked. What do you mean? I mean, what else are you sorry for? Because if you think this is all about one rude comment, you haven't learned a thing. Jessica jumped in. Tatum, we know we took you for granted, sometimes. I laughed. Jessica, you moved into my home and started tossing my things in the trash like they were clutter. You told the kids to call me the maid, as a joke. You ate my food, used my water, my electricity, and then had the nerve to complain when I asked you to clean up after yourselves. Her face flushed red. That's not how it happened. Isn't it? I turned to Cedric. Remember last Christmas, when you borrowed my credit card to buy gifts? $800 I couldn't afford, because I was already keeping 4 extra people afloat in my home? Cedric shifted, visibly uncomfortable. I paid you back. No, you didn't. You said you would, that's not the same thing. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over me. Let me guess why you're really here, I said. You need a place to crash. You need money. You want good old mom to swoop in and save the day. Again. They exchanged a glance. Bullseye. We just need a little help to get back on our feet, Cedric said. Maybe you could take out a loan on this new apartment, he added. Jessica jumped in before I could respond. Or, maybe you could talk to the buyers? Ask if they'd consider selling the house back? I'm sure they'd understand. I looked at the two of them, grown adults still looking for a lifeboat. Still allergic to accountability. Do you know what I did with the money from selling the house? Their eyes brightened. Like beggars smelling food. I donated a third of it, I said flatly, watching their hope collapse. To charities that support elderly people who are being abused by their own families. Cedric's jaw dropped. You gave away my inheritance? Your inheritance? I stood. My voice raised for the first time. You didn't inherit anything, Cedric, because you never earned anything. Inheritance is for children who show love, respect, and decency. Not for leeches who treat their mothers like personal ATMs. That's our money. Jessica shrieked, the mask fully off now. We lived in that house. We were family. You were tenants, I replied, cold and clear. Tenants who never paid rent. And now? Now you're trespassers. I turned toward the elevator, but Cedric reached out and grabbed my arm. Mom, what about the rest of the money? I shook him off and met his eyes. The rest is mine. I'm 69 years old, Cedric. And for the first time in my life, I'm going to spend money on me. On what? He demanded. Travel. Good food. Books. A peaceful retirement where no one treats me like garbage. I pressed the elevator button. All the things I should have done 20 years ago instead of financing ungrateful adults. The doors opened. I stepped inside. As they slid shut, Jessica's voice rang out one last time. What are we supposed to do? I met her eyes calmly. Figure it out. Like grown-ups do. Upstairs, I made myself a cup of tea and sat on my balcony. My phone rang twice. I let it ring. From the second-story window, I could see them in the parking lot, bickering. Their voices floated up. This is all your fault. Jessica was screaming. You said she'd never actually do it. She's lost it, Cedric snapped back. She'll change her mind. She has to. But I wouldn't. I wasn't going back. For the first time since I could remember, I was exactly where I wanted to be, doing exactly what I wanted. Reading books I'd always put off. Trying recipes I saw on TV. Taking long walks without worrying about someone else's dinner. That evening, Mrs. Chen knocked gently and handed me a container of soup. I saw those people bothering you today, she said, with genuine concern. Family issues? Former family, I corrected as I took the warm container with gratitude. They're not my responsibility anymore. She nodded, approving. Good. Life's too short to let people suck the joy out of it. Even if they're related to you. As I warmed the soup, I realized something unexpectedly profound. Mrs. Chen, someone I'd known for less than a month, had shown me more kindness and respect than my own son had in decades. Maybe blood isn't thicker than water. Maybe family is something you choose, not something you're stuck with. That night, I slept deeply. Peacefully. Knowing tomorrow would be quiet. Simple. Mine. And Cedric? For the first time in his life. He'd have to figure out his tomorrow, without me. 2 months went by. No texts. No calls. No unwanted visits. I started to think he'd finally given up. I was wrong. The first sign was a handwritten letter, slipped under my door. Not a text. Not an email. Real paper. Real ink. Cedric had never written me a letter in his life. Dear Mom, it began. I've had time to think about everything. I realize now how wrong I was, and I want to make it right. 3 pages of apologies. Promises. He said he had a job now. He and Jessica were in therapy. They'd found a modest apartment. The kids missed me dearly and asked about me every day. It sounded heartfelt. Well written. Too good to be true. Because it was. I knew Cedric. I raised Cedric. And if there's one thing he never learned, it was how to follow through when things got hard. Owning up to mistakes? Impossible for him. This letter wasn't change. It was strategy. Probably Jessica's. Still. I was curious. How far would he go? That night, I called him. Cedric, I got your letter. His voice lit up with hope. Mom. I was praying you'd call. So, what did you think? Did you believe it? I'm willing to give you a chance to prove it, I said. But it won't be easy. Anything. I'll do anything. Good. Then be here Saturday morning. 8 a.m. Bring clothes you can work in. Work clothes? Mrs. Chen, my neighbor, the one who gave me soup. She's 83. Her garage needs clearing out. If you're truly sorry for mistreating an elderly woman, you can start by helping one who deserves it. There was a pause, long enough that I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. Okay, he finally said. I'll be there. Saturday morning came and went. Cedric didn't show. I wasn't surprised. But I was disappointed, not in him, in me, for still hoping he might have changed. At 10:30, my phone rang. Mom, I'm so sorry, Cedric said breathlessly. Jessica had a migraine, I had to take the kids to school, then the car wouldn't start, and... Cedric, I cut in. It's fine. No, it's not fine, he insisted. Let me make it up to you. I'll come tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday. Mrs. Chen goes to church and sees her sister on Sundays. Okay, next Saturday then? Next Saturday works, I said. Same time. 8 a.m. He didn't show up that Saturday either. That time, the excuse was a last-minute shift at work. The next week? One of the kids had a fever. By the 4th missed Saturday, I stopped expecting him. Still, I was curious to see how long he'd keep the game going. So I kept saying yes. It wasn't until the 6th Saturday that he finally turned up, 3 hours late, looking sheepish, holding a to-go cup from the pricey coffee place down the block. I know I'm late, he said, trying for charm. 3 hours late, I replied. But I'm here, and I brought you a vanilla latte. You used to love these. I took the coffee but didn't drink it. Mrs. Chen finished cleaning out her garage 4 weeks ago, I told him. Her son came and helped. His face dropped. Oh. Well. Maybe there's something else I can do? I studied him for a long moment. He looked worn out. Thinner, but not falling apart. Clean clothes. Styled hair. He wasn't sleeping in his car anymore. That meant he'd found stability, without me. Actually, yes, I said at last. I've been volunteering at the community center, reading aloud to seniors with vision problems. They're short on volunteers. His expression brightened instantly. That sounds perfect. I love old people. I nearly laughed out loud. Cedric had never shown the slightest affection for the elderly. If anything, he'd grown more impatient with me the older I got. Great, I said. They meet Tuesday mornings at 9. I'll tell them you're coming. His smile faltered. Tuesday mornings? I usually work then. You said you'd do anything. I know, but I can't skip work, I really need this job. How about Thursday afternoons? There's another group that meets then. Thursday afternoons, I pick up the kids from school. I nodded slowly. Evenings? They have a dinner service for seniors who live alone. You could help serve meals. Evenings are family time. Jessica thinks it's important we eat together as a family. I set the untouched coffee down. Cedric, in the last 5 minutes, you've told me you can't help on Tuesday mornings, Thursday afternoons, or any evening. When, exactly, are you available to prove how sorry you are? He shifted uncomfortably. Well, weekends. I could do weekend stuff. You've missed 6 Saturdays. That was different. Those were emergencies. Were they? Because from where I stand, helping others seems to always be your last priority. Just like respecting me always was. His cheeks flushed. That's not fair, Mom. I'm trying here. Trying means showing up. Trying means making time, not just empty promises. It means putting others first sometimes, not just expecting them to rearrange their lives for you. I stood, suddenly exhausted by the whole performance. You know what, Cedric? Don't worry about volunteering. And don't worry about proving anything. What are you saying? I looked at him, this grown man I had raised, who still believed the world owed him something. And all I felt was pity. I'm saying you've already proven everything I needed to know. He left that day confused and frustrated. I didn't see him again. Not because I was avoiding him. But because, for the first time, he believed me when I said I was done. And the truth was, I didn't need more apologies. I didn't need rehearsed remorse or gestures made under pressure. I had something far better. People who respected me without needing to be convinced. People who wanted me around, not just for what I could do for them. Mrs. Chen still brought me soup twice a week. Roberto, my neighbor, had started inviting me to his family's Sunday dinners. At the community center, the seniors lit up when I walked in. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued me. Not just my usefulness. And that felt like the greatest victory of all. A year after I walked away from my old life, I stood in a hospital room beside someone who had become dearer to me than my own son ever was. Mrs. Chen lay in a hospital bed, small and frail beneath the white sheets. At 84, a stroke had left her unable to live alone. Her only son lived in Seattle, and couldn't come back. I don't want to go to a nursing home, she whispered, clutching my hand with unexpected strength. I just want to go home. I glanced around the sterile, quiet room. I thought of the warmth with which she had welcomed me into the apartment building. Of her stories, her soup, her presence. Of the simple gift of friendship, freely given. What if you didn't have to? I asked gently. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? What if you came home with me? The idea had been sitting in my mind since the day of her stroke. My apartment had 2 bedrooms. I'd been rattling around it alone for months. Sometimes talking to my plants just to fill the silence. She needed care. I needed connection. Tatum, I couldn't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Chen moved into my spare room. I helped with her medication, drove her to therapy, and made sure she ate well. In return, she filled my apartment with laughter. She told vivid stories about her life as a young bride coming to America. She taught me how to make dumplings better than any restaurants. It never felt like a burden. It felt like a gift. She regained most of her independence in 6 months. And I realized that caring for someone who appreciated me was a whole different world from being used by people who didn't. It wasn't about obligation. It was about love, real love. The kind that shows up. The kind that stays. Roberto's family had officially adopted me as their honorary grandmother. His children called me Abuela Tatum, and they actually listened when I spoke. They'd sit wide-eyed as I shared stories of growing up in another time, hanging on to every word like it was treasure. At the community center, I'd taken on a new role, coordinator of the reading program. I managed volunteers, created new events, and watched with pride as our little group grew. The seniors there had become my extended family, people who celebrated my birthday, asked how I was feeling, and genuinely cared about my happiness. One evening, as Mrs. Chen and I sat out on our balcony, watching the sun melt into the horizon, she turned to me and asked something that gave me pause. "Do you ever miss your old life?" I thought about it for a moment, choosing my words carefully. "I miss the version of that life I imagined," I said. "I miss the son I thought I had, not the one I actually raised." "Any regrets?" she asked gently. "Just one," I admitted. "I regret waiting so long to put myself first." That's when I noticed him, across the street, partly hidden behind a tree. Cedric. He'd been doing this for months. Showing up. Watching the building. Never coming close. Just watching. At first, it made me anxious. Now, it just made me feel a little hollow. "Is that him?" Mrs. Chen asked, following my gaze. I nodded. "He still thinks I'm going to change my mind. That someday I'll get lonely enough, or guilty enough, to let him back in. Will you?" I looked around at my life. Mrs. Chen reading in the chair beside me. Roberto's children laughing in the courtyard below. My herb garden thriving along the balcony rail. Tomorrow, I'd be reading to seniors at the center. Tomorrow night, Mrs. Chen and I would make dinner together and she'd tell me, once again, about her husband's awful jokes. "No," I said, without hesitation. "I won't." Mrs. Chen smiled. "Good," she said. "Because family isn't about blood, dear. It's about the people who show up." As if on cue, Roberto leaned over the balcony beneath us and called up. "Ladies. My wife made too many tamales again, want me to bring some up?" "Always, Mrs. H." Chen shouted back, laughing. I looked across the street. Cedric was still there, standing in the shadows, waiting for me to need him. But the truth was, I had never needed anyone less. 2 years ago, if you'd told me I'd be living with an elderly Chinese woman who wasn't even related to me, that I'd be sharing tamales with a Mexican family who had taken me in as their own, that I'd be spending my days helping other seniors rediscover joy in their later years, I would have called you crazy. But here I was, surrounded by chosen family. People who didn't just tolerate me. They loved me. Not because of what I could offer, but because of who I was. They listened when I spoke. They valued my stories. And they never made me feel like a burden. Cedric eventually turned and walked away that evening, fading into the night just as the street lights flickered on. As I watched him go, I realized something important. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not grief. Not even pity. He was just another passerby now. Someone who'd once mattered, but had made the choice to remove himself from my life. Mrs. Chen patted my hand gently. "Come on," she said. "Roberto's bringing tamales, and I want to show you the photos from my grandson's wedding." We headed back inside. Into a home that was warm, welcoming, and ours. And as we did, something deep within me settled. I'd spent 68 years trying to earn love from people who couldn't give it. At 69, I finally learned to recognize love when it was freely given. And I had never been richer. Before I closed the balcony door, I caught a glimpse of myself reflected in the glass. I looked different. Lighter. Stronger. Even younger somehow, despite being another year older. The face looking back at me belonged to someone who knew her worth. Who had found her place in the world. And who would never again settle for crumbs, because she knew she deserved the whole feast. Some people spend a lifetime searching for family. I found mine at 69. And it was perfect. Now I'm curious about you, the one listening to my story. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Have you ever lived through something like this? Drop a comment below, I'd love to hear it. And before you go, I've left 2 more of our favorite stories right here on the final screen. They just might surprise you. Thank you for watching all the way to the end.